Luke 5:16, the text says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." There's an interesting pattern, I think, throughout Scripture that Jesus was in two places often. The text here in Luke says he often withdrew into lonely places. Metaphorically, we could call those desert places, these places in which we are alone and isolated. And then so often we also see Jesus at the table, surrounded by friends. I can't help but wonder if it's maybe not an accident that there's two primary places in which Jesus decides and chooses to actually transform our hearts. And we need to learn to live in both of these places to get the fullness of that transformation, the understanding of who God has called us to be. And one of those places is a desert place where we are isolated and alone. And the other of those places is a table in which we're living in the midst of community. So let's begin to contrast these two things and how important they are to our own transformation. So in the desert, we fast from relationships. We are isolated. It's just between us and God. And then at the table, we feast on relationships. There's a power in the midst of both of those. If we're only always in relationship, we'll never get a sense of our own heart. And yet if we are always alone, we will never be influenced by other people. We have to both fast and feast on relationships. In the desert, we focus on ourselves. And at the table, we can focus on others. There's a time in which we need to shine the flashlight of attention on our own heart so God can transform us and look at us. Then there are other times in which we need to take the flashlight off of ourselves and onto other people to figure out how is it that God's moving in the midst of them. Whenever we are in the desert now, we remember our need for others. By being alone, it counts to mind this idea that we actually need other people. And so when we're around them, it gives us an appreciation for who they are. When we're at the table, we're reminded of our need for God, that He and He alone is our ultimate source. And so whenever we are then removed from people, it gives us a value of what God can actually bring to us. When we are in the desert, we are being served. God is attending to us. When we're at the table, we're supposed to serve others. It's in isolation in the desert that we can recover and prepare. It's at the table that we can actually act. Our faith can take action of some sort. It's in the desert where you and I will learn what we are to do. And it's there at the table that we're actually doing what it is that we have learned. I think all throughout the Gospels, you can see that Jesus is intermingling between this time of isolation and this time of community. In the desert with the Father alone, and then at the same time among His disciples and also among others. And I can't help but think that kind of rhythm in our own lives is an integral aspect. So I wonder today, which of those two do you need more? Where are you leaning more? And there's nothing wrong with being there. That's good. But you also have to have this other side of the coin, the other side of formation that needs to take place. So if you're always around people, what would it look like for you to, as Jesus did in Luke, to withdraw to a lonely place, a quiet place and pray? If you're always by yourself, what would it look like to be more intentional about filling people around your table, about going to places in which community actually takes place so that you can bask now in the relationship of others? It is both at the desert and at the table in which God actually chooses to transform our hearts.